Hello and welcome to GSF Podcast, sponsored by the Gary Sinise Foundation's Education and Outreach Initiative, aiming to educate the public on the importance of serving America's veterans, first responders, and their families.
Welcome to the Gary Sinise Foundation Podcast. I'm your host, Cristin, and today we're joined by someone who truly needs no introduction. You all know him well, our founder, our fearless leader, and our friend, Gary.
Thanks for having me.
I'm excited. Today, we're sitting down to talk about something particularly meaningful to Gary, his participation in the 2025 36th Annual National Memorial Day Concert here in Washington, D.C., and a deeply personal moment that unfolds during the event. All right, Gary, welcome back to Mac's podcast.
Good to be back.
Yeah, it's always so meaningful when you're here.
Thank you.
To start, why is Memorial Day important to you?
It's a little bit sad to me that so many young people don't really even know what Memorial Day is. Mm-hmm. And they don't know the difference between Memorial Day and Veterans Day, and that Memorial Day is the day that we honor the fallen who have given their lives in service to our country over many, many years, 250 years, and during the history of our country. It's one of our most special holidays, I think, because of that. Freedom has to be fought for, it has to be protected. A lot of people have given their lives to do just that. Families have sacrificed. And so we take this time on the National Memorial Day Concert on PBS every year, kind of a well-kept secret. I mean, it's the largest viewership, I think, that PBS gets throughout the year. One of the best watched shows. I think about 10 to 12 million people tune in for it. But still, when you think of the number of people that are in our country that aren't tuning in to the National Memorial Day Concert, I wish more people knew about it. And so we do what we can to highlight it and point it up. I do as much press as we can, Joe does, to try and get the word out, because it is one of the most significant, if not the most significant holiday in our country, I think. Just remembering the fallen and remembering the sacrifices of the families who have to go on, during grief and loss, and we can never do enough for them as far as I'm concerned. So I like to take this moment, this weekend, to do as much as I can, and you know how much I pack into the weekend, to do as much as I can to celebrate those families.
Yeah. Gary, you've been a part of the National Memorial Day Concert since 2005. That's 20 years. 20 years. Can you share your history about co-hosting this always remarkable, always inspiring event?
Well, the story goes, in 2003, I volunteered to do USO work. Mm-hmm. I did my first concert on a military base in 2003. So I started raising my hand to go out for the USO and visit the troops and go to the war zones, go to the hospitals, that kind of thing. Eventually I started taking my band, and the USO, liked it, and we were very, very busy with the band. So I set up my first tour to Europe, and was to the UK, the Netherlands, and Germany. Mm-hmm. And we went in the spring of 2005. So that was already set.
Wow.
I was already set. I was going to do that tour. I was just volunteering wherever I could. I was doing CSI New York at that time. But we just went into our hiatus, so I went on an overseas tour. And just before I went on the overseas tour, I got this call from Joe Mantegna, my buddy Joe. And he asked me if I knew about the National Memorial Day concert. And I didn't. I didn't know about it. And this had been, it'd been on television since 1990.
Wow.
As this well-kept secret. And I was unaware of it. And he said, well, I started doing it a couple years ago. And this year, we're going to do a segment on the USO. Just a sort of a history of the USO, highlight the USO, the importance of the USO to the war effort during World War II and onward. And Joe said, you're doing a lot of USO work. We'd like you to come and bring your band and be a part of the show. And I didn't know much about it. I knew it was in Washington, D.C., and he said it was in front of the Capitol and everything. So we went on our May tour. We did, 6 or 7 shows in Germany.
Back to back to back. I mean, you pack them in.
We banged out Germany, UK, Netherlands. It was great. I mean, we're doing what I really wanted to do, which was support our troops, go over there, entertain them. Having started in 2003, I just kept rolling and going. So this was now our first overseas, kind of in the spirit of Bob Hope and all that, our first overseas entertainment tour that we were doing in Europe. So we finished the tour, and the timing worked out that we could just fly directly to DC to be a part of the National Memorial Day concert. So we get there, and I come out on stage, and I'm staring at the Capitol. And, we're going to rehearse. It's during the day. I'm staring at this giant Capitol. There's the big West Lawn in between the stage and the Capitol, big West Lawn. They tell me there's going to be a lot of people out there. We rehearse Saturday. The show is on Sunday with dress rehearsal.
Yep.
And there must have been 10,000 people watching the rehearsal that night. I thought, wow, this is an incredible. I mean, we're just doing a dress rehearsal. And so the next day, at the concert, there's like 150,000 people on the lawn. It's just this giant. It's this giant crowd, and it's televised too. So another 10 to 12 million people are going to watch on television. And I'm I'm an actor with a cover band. I mean, it's not like there were other great people on the bill that night. I mean, every show at the National Memorial Day concert, every year they get great artists. I can't remember exactly. I'd have to go back and track. Maybe you can do some research on that. Who was on stage? Because we've done, so many shows in between. Can't remember everybody who was on stage doing a performance. At that first concert, but there were great artists I know. And here's, Gary Sinise, Lieutenant Dan, this
rocking out
guy with a cover band, and I'm playing for 150,000 people after going to Germany and the UK and the Netherlands and playing. And so it was like a dream. We played Ain't No Mountain High Enough, I remember. Then I talked, about what the day means to me and Memorial Day and, why I was doing everything I was doing with the troops and everything. And then we played God Bless the USA, and everybody was standing up and singing along with us and everything. And then they asked me, prior to that, they said, we also want you to narrate a couple of segments. As long as you're there, they had other actors that are on the bill. Other actors come out and they perform and tell stories and that kind of thing. So I said, sure, I'll do it. So I narrated a few segments, and then the following year, Joe called up and said, hey, would you come back and be my co-host with me, co-host the show with me? Joe had done it. When he first started doing it, he wasn't the host. He came to do, ironically, the story right after September 11th. We had September 11th, 2001. they called up Joe and asked him to come and do a segment in the 2002 show. Oh. And he said he hadn't known about the National Memorial Day concert either before that. And so they asked him to come, and ironically, he was doing the John Vigiano story.
No.
Yeah, and John was there. And if you've heard me talk about John before, he was very, very special to me. I met him on my first tour to Iraq. He was a retired firefighter. He lost 2 sons on September 11th. And this was the year after September 11th, so everybody was thinking about that. And, you know, a lot of people had died. John lost his sons. They told the story of September 11th kind of through him. And Joe did that segment. And then they asked him to come, and Ozzie Davis and Charles Durning, they were a big part of the show at the time. I think Ozzie may have been hosting by himself at that time. So Joe started kind of taking over little host duties after that. Then he called me and asked me to come and co-host with him in 2006, which I did, and then I was hooked. Yeah. You know, from that point on, I wanted to come back each year and do it. I've only missed 2 years. One was because in 2017, our first little grandbaby was going to be born.
First one,
and,
yeah.
And her due date was like right before Memorial
It was
Day.
a day.
So I called him, I said, I just can't leave. I want to be here for the birth. And then 2 years later, I missed because of what was happening with Mac. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. But I wouldn't miss it for anything other than something really deeply challenging for me to leave. You know, otherwise I want to be here that weekend.
Yep, to honor these families.
Yeah.
Well, Joe wanted to share a little video on the podcast and share a message to you.
Hey, Gary, I'm sorry this little minor inner ear thing I have is keeping me from flying to DC this weekend. But I just want you to know, have a great Memorial Day event. This is going to be, after 22 years, the first one I'm missing. But I'll see you next year. But when asked, what's my favorite moment at the concert? I tell you, my favorite moment in the concert every year is that moment when they announce our 2 names and we walk out there at the beginning and meet in the middle. Because here's 2 guys that have known each other for almost 50 years. We get to hug, look out at the Capitol building with that flag flying, and together be able to honor our veterans over the history of this country of ours. So God bless you, my dear friend, and I'd love you even if you weren't an Italian from Chicago. Take care. See you, buddy.
I love him. That's great.
I love the way he describes that moment.
Yeah, I knew he was going to say that because
you did.
Because it's special. Yeah, it's special for both of us, and he's said that before. When we come out, we shake hands. We're, we're starting the show. It's the very beginning of the show, and they're just, we have all those memories of all those many years that we've done it together, and that's very special. It's like it's the traditional Memorial Weekend event for me. When we could, I was bringing Uncle Jack. I was bringing the veterans of my family, Amy and Jack Treese. Brought Gavin. My dad. We would bring everybody. The whole family would come and be a part of the concert. They don't do this now, but the reception after the concert used to be up at the Capitol.
Oh wow!
So we'd all get in cars and then everybody go up to the Capitol and go into the rotunda. And, I mean, it was a big event up in the Capitol. They can't do that anymore, but I would take the whole family up there, and they would get to walk around, go in the Senate and go in the House, and walk around, see everything, and there would be all these veterans there. Wounded veterans that I was working with, trying to help. I would meet different veterans there every year. It was just very, very special,
It's like a family reunion.
Yeah, it was. And Joe would have his family there, too.
Yeah.
His Uncle Willie was there, and he's, was in the Battle of the Bulge, and him and my Uncle Jack just bonded, and they connected over their World War II experience, and it was just very, very special, and now my family can't travel, with me like that. So I come, and Joe's family is, not coming as much as they used to. So Joe and I are like the two brothers.
Yep.
We meet. We've got the whole family thing behind us. But
you meet in the center of that stage.
I miss him. He's he's done it for many, many years. He said, "Well, I guess after 22 years, I'm I'm due to miss one."
Yeah. Hosting a live 90-minute broadcast is so intense. There is no room for errors. And yet you and Joe make it look so easy in a way. And do you think that's a nod to your theater background? Like a good, proving ground for these demands of live television?
Well, yeah, all the actors that are on stage are coming out there to read. All our lines are all on the prompter. So they put everything on the prompter, and we're all reading, but we're all actors, and we're used to reading lines and trying to make them sound like we're saying them for the first time. We're telling stories there.
Yeah.
That's the thing. We're telling stories. We're sharing moments throughout the history of our country. We tell personal stories of different people that have sacrificed over the years and things they've seen. I remember when Charles Durning was alive, and he did his own personal story. And Charlie hit the beach on D-Day, and he fought his way into Germany. And Charlie is one of the great American actors. And he got up there and told his own story, and he's reading it, because they wrote it all down. But he's living it while he's reading it, and he's telling it from his own personal experience. That was, I'll never forget that. It was powerful to witness and to see. He was a great man, and we got to, I got to know Charlie through the concert. That's where I first met him a little bit, and then when he got his star on the Walk of Fame, Joe and I were both there.
Oh, I love that.
To talk about Charlie when he got his star, and another great moment. We do. There were 5 events that I did at the Reagan Library with the Congressional Medal of Honor Society called the Celebration of Freedom, Congressional Medal of Honor Society's Celebration of Freedom. And they had given me an award, the society, in 2007. And when I was getting to know them, they said they were looking to do an event in Los Angeles. And did I know where they could do it or something like that? So I took them to the Reagan Library, and a lot of them hadn't been to the Reagan Library. But the folks that were kind of organizing it came to the library, perfect place for it. So we ended up doing 5 events in a row. They had given me the award in 2007. The award is the Bob Hope Award for Excellence in Entertainment. So it specifically goes to an actor or something who has portrayed good characters and, strong characters. They liked Lieutenant Dan and all that. And so I got to, as one of the co-hosts for the Congressional Medal of Honor event, I got to select the actors from my community who were going to get the award. And the first year we did it was 2008. We had John Voight, and gave it to John Voight. The second year was Charlie. And Charlie got up, and I remember what he said. He goes, "Well, I don't know if I deserve this award, but I have diabetes, and I don't deserve that either." That's what Charlie said.
That's his speech.
Yeah, he said that. And he was just a funny guy, and
apparently he's very lighthearted.
Incredible guy.
Wow.
But when he did his story at the National Memorial Day concert, it was so powerful and moving. He's talking about hitting the beach on D-Day and what he saw and witnessed and everything.
Someone to tell their own story.
Yeah, that was amazing. Yeah.
Wow.
And usually we have actors telling other people's story. They're sitting in the audience, but with Charlie, he had his story.
Yeah.
He was there, and so he told that story, and boy, it was powerful. And so through this concert, I've gotten to meet just incredible people, and they have incredible actors every year on stage, incredible music. And each year we say to each other at the end of the concert that this is the best one we've ever done.
Yep.
And we say it every year.
Every year. Every year.
Because it feels like it's the best one we've ever done, but they're all good. Michael Colbert and the team who produce it for Capitol Concerts do a magnificent job. It's really a privilege and an honor to be a part of it.
What makes this year's event especially meaningful to you?
Well, it's always meaningful because we're telling important stories and we're trying to draw attention to the fallen. These are fallen, and in just recent years, 3 or 4 years now, whatever it's been, the Gary Sinise Foundation has been bringing, our groups, families of our fallen heroes, to be here this weekend. And one of the things we do with them, we let them come to the Saturday night dress rehearsal. So that is always special, having our families, our group that we're supporting, be a part of the weekend with me. And they ride on the float with me in the parade and all that. That's always very special. This is especially meaningful because there's a World War II segment in the show where we talk about the 80th anniversary of the end of World War II. Yep. And we have a group of World War II veterans all up on stage at the same time. We're telling the story through United States Marine who fought on Iwo Jima, Don Graves, and Don will be in the audience listening to his story as Robert Patrick kind of tells his story, playing Don. And then at the end of that, we reveal this group of World War II veterans, and everybody, of course, celebrates and stands up and, pays tribute to the veterans. But during that segment, when the veterans are revealed, the National Symphony Orchestra is going to be playing one of Mac's songs, a very, very patriotic anthem composition that he wrote called The Rise. It's a magnificent piece that when I first discovered it, and this is a piece that Mac had never played for me. Mac had started writing for some of our videos at the foundation, and he wrote on computer. He would have a Pro Tools program where you can get the strings and the horns and the timpanis.
He's every instrument.
All the instruments, and you can put them all in, and you can create a piece on your computer.
Wow.
And so that's what I found. I found this piece that Mac had composed, and written and composed, and I'm listening to it, and I'm like, what is this? Why didn't I know about this? And I was knocked out by it. I mean, it was like Mac wanted to write something that would be like a patriotic anthem.
Oh yeah.
Like Aaron Copland, like Fanfare for the Common Man. I mean, you can tell the influences because the main line in this is a trumpet in The Rise, and timpanis and everything, and he wrote this beautiful, beautiful piece, and I found it just after he died. I started looking through everything and I found it. And I remember early on, before I think probably before I even, decided to have it recorded with a live orchestra, I may have sent it to Michael Colbert and said, just listen to this piece because I think it's right for the concert. I mean,
oh yeah.
And then we recorded it with a live orchestra. I got Oliver Schnee to come back and work on the second album. And The Rise was one of the pieces that we recorded with the live orchestra. And then I sent that composition to, that finished product with the live orchestra, everybody playing, because Mac had done it all on computer. Now we're transposing it, we're adding to it, we're recording it with a live orchestra. And it's beautiful, it's wonderful. And I sent it to Michael and said, you gotta listen to this. And short time later, once they started sorting out what the concert was going to be, what are the segments and how is it going to work, they start deciding what music to use. Then he called me up and he said, we're going to use Mac's piece during the World War II segment on the concert. So.
What did that mean to you?
Yeah.
Like personally as a father?
Can you imagine? There's so many things I wish, you always, when you lose somebody, you start thinking, well, I wish I would have done that, or I wish I would have said that, or I wish I would have asked about this, or I wish we would have discussed this and that. I wish I'd found that. I wish Mac had played that music for me. But he was such a humble sort of writer that I think he just quietly, would write things on his own and then kind of tuck them away, because there was all this other music I found, that I never heard either. But I wish he could. I know he knows what we're doing right now. Right. I mean, the fact that the National Symphony Orchestra, one of our great orchestras in the country, is going to play his music. I know it's personal to them because it's personal to me, but it also validates how good the music is.
Exactly.
Because they would say, "Oh, Garrett," if it wasn't good, they would say, "Oh, yeah, thanks, but we've got all the music we need and everything like that." They know it's good music, and when you hear it played by the orchestra, it's powerful. It's something.
Well, we would like to play Mac's song, "The Rise," from the album Resurrection and Revival Part 2. Take it away, Mac.
Good seeing you again. Welcome home.
Say hi, Gary.
Robert, Frank, and Irving, hi. Come on, sir. No beans? Lieutenant Dan's beans. Oh dear.
incredible, that song.
Yeah.
And so this song is also played to introduce your Lieutenant Dan band before you perform for the troops.
Yeah, we've had the same video to open our shows for years, going back to the CSI days. So for 10 years or something, we used a video that was a lot of movie clips and clips of me and different characters in different movies and stuff like that. It was fun for people to see. But when I heard the Rise too, I thought, I want that to be a part of our show, our band show. I want that's going to open our show. And then I asked Kip if he would cut a new video together with that music.
Yeah.
So he grabbed a bunch of great shots and put them all together in a really nice video, and that's what you saw just there. And so when they introduce the band, the video comes on, it plays, it gives people a little taste of all these different things that I'm doing and the foundation is doing and all that, and then the band comes in and starts playing.
How does it feel knowing Mac is part of the show? Like he's up there with you and he's so integrated in this mission.
The first time we used the video, I was standing backstage and I couldn't see the video screen, but I was standing backstage and the music comes on and it starts to play, and I lost it backstage. I just was like, tears just started flowing, and I was just very emotional. And I was kind of in my own world. I got my bass on, you know how I do. I warm up back there and I've got my bass on and I'm listening to it. As soon as it's over, I got to walk out on stage, and I'm got my head down and I'm, tears and all that, listening to the music. Next thing I know, I feel these arms around me. And this Gina and Molly had seen me from the stairs up here, and just back by myself, just having this moment, and they came and they just smothered me with love. And, they knew what was happening, as I was listening to the music. And then it was time to start the show. And I had to shake it off and walk out on stage and be happy Gary out there. And but that was the first time. And now Mac's a part of the show. Each time we do it, he's a part of the show. Beth and Danny both play on the recording of the Rise, so they're on that recording. So they help to bring that piece to life, and having Mac a part of that show, and then having him be a part of the National Memorial Day concert up there on stage with me. The orchestra plays while I'm talking, so Mac is backing me up as I'm talking about our World War II veterans, and it's a beautiful, beautiful moment.
He's with you all along the way.
He's right there.
He is. And so the albums are doing pretty amazingly. The downloads of the albums, and people are responding to his music. Yeah. That's I've been sharing the story with different people. People have been reaching out to me and wanting to ask me about it. One story, somebody sees one story and then they want to reach out and ask me about it, talk about the music. They listen to the music. The music is really good, so they're like, incredible.
Wow, this guy was a real talent, and they want to talk to me about that, and they want to talk to me about some of the things that we went through. And then, people hear the story, they hear about the music, they look for it online, they go to our website, the Gary Sinise Foundation, they buy the albums, and the proceeds are going to the foundation, so people like that aspect of it, that they're purchasing something that's actually going to help somebody else, which is what Mac wanted to do. So it's caught on, and when I saw that list, the top 10 most downloaded albums
in America,
one week, the most 2 of the most downloaded albums in the top 10 were Mac's albums.
Both albums.
I mean, both albums,
Both
in
albums
the top 10.
In the top 10.
You know, I mean, that's a constantly fluctuating
Yep.
and changing list
Yep.
because the downloads keep rapidly changing and everything like that. But for that moment in time, Mac's Resurrection and Revival, I think, was number 6, and Part 2 was number 9 in the top 10 most downloaded records in America on iTunes and Amazon, which is, I mean, I never even was thinking about that. You know, I mean, we wanted people to know that they can download the music, but
Yep. There was never a goal. It was
it was just to make the music available.
exactly.
We have, you know, and you can see the people that are on that list. They're you know, big stars that have lots of marketing. You know, the record labels are behind them and they're pushing their products and everything. We don't have a record label. We just printed some albums and printed the, you know, music and made it available. So the fact that we made it there, and Forbes was the one who saw that and decided to make an article about it and write about it and highlight it. I think that was. I know that Mac was just he was knocked out by that for sure.
Absolutely. What do you think that Mac was trying to convey through the Rise, and how does that message connect with the spirit of Memorial Day?
Well, I'm a patriotic guy, you know, and I've been very pro-country and, you know, pro-service and pro-veteran person. And I raised my kids to, you know, respect the flag and to, you know, and to love their country.
Yeah.
And I think Mac, you know, wanted to write something that would reflect that in some way, you know, the way Copeland was such an Americana, you know, composer, and he was, you know, he was moved by that, and I think he wanted to write something that would reflect a lot of that, and the fact that he called it the Rise, I think, in some ways reflects on one of our programs, you know, which is called Rise, Restoring Independence, Supporting Empowerment for our wounded service members that are badly banged up and they need specially adapted housing, which we provide at the Gary Sinise Foundation. And Mac was meeting a lot of those people.
Yep.
He wrote this probably in 2000, I think it was 2017 that he wrote it when he had first started, when he first came to work for the foundation. I had connected him up with Kip to write some music on the documentary that Kip and Alana were working on, Always Do a Little More, and Mac wrote about, I don't know, 75% of that music, I think. So he was kind of in a writing mode, and he was doing it all on his computer. Of course, for the foundation, we can't afford to hire violinists and cellists.
So he has to do every part.
He's got to do every part on his computer, and you know, and that's what he was doing. And so he was kind of reflecting what he was learning about and what he was feeling, and wanted to write something that would uplift. You know, it would lift people up.
Yeah.
The Rise. He would rise people up, and that's what he wanted to write. I'm sure of it. I'm glad he did it, and I'm glad I found it.
I'm glad you found it, absolutely. You've spoken before about the power of music and storytelling and how it heals and unites and inspires. How has music and storytelling helped you and your family through the grief?
You know, music, it's its own language, right? And it's a language that everybody can understand. You either like it or you don't. You know?
It's true.
But you're gonna always find music that you do like, and you're gonna you know, there's gonna be some things that you just don't like. But it's something that connects us all. You know, you can go anywhere, and you might not be able to speak the language, but you start some music going, and everybody's bopping their heads together. And everybody's feeling the same thing, which is the power of this music to kind of, you know, raise our emotions and bring us together and all that. And it can also help heal. You know, it can bring us out of our darkness. You know, if it's the right spirit. And it certainly helped me. I mean, I've been playing now way more than I ever thought I would be playing back, in the day when I was just focusing on acting. But all of a sudden I picked it up again, started playing in the late 90s, and playing for a mission is something it's a little bit different. I'm not playing for money. I've never made a dime playing my bass since the early days, back when I was 19 years old, and they would pay me a couple of bucks to play. But since I picked it up again in the late 90s, I haven't made any money. It's all about the mission.
Yep.
It's all about, I had to hire a bunch of other people to play, and that's what they do. They're professionals. They make their living at it.
Yeah.
But I thought, for me, I make my living as an actor. I'm not going to try to make a living as a bass player. Mm-hmm. There are many bass players who are way better than I am who deserve to make a living.
You're good.
I can keep up. But that wasn't the point. The point was, I'm going to play a bunch of songs that everybody's going to like, hit songs from many different genres and many different eras, classics and contemporary, all these different things. And I'm going to put a variety show together of a lot of different styles, and I'm going to put a band behind me that will help me deliver the goods. Mm-hmm. So there's many times in our show where I just step back and the band is doing their thing, Yeah.
Oftentimes.
Yeah. Well, the bass player usually steps back.
I know, but they love you.
The bass player steps back. I'll jump out there every once in a while, but I have such an incredible band. Mm-hmm. I want them to show off and everything like that. And that's the show. It's a show, and I have a great band. It's kind of this family thing. So many of the band members have been with me a long time.
Oh yeah.
They play these songs over and over, but nobody gets tired of it because. They love playing the concerts that I take them to, because there's a lot of people there, and they're all, there's little kids and there's older people and everybody in between. Everybody's really enjoying themselves, really having a good time. And that lifts me up. When I see all these other people having a good time, that lifts me up. And through all this stuff, all the cancer stuff and all the spine stuff with my wife and my dad's stroke and all these different things that were happening, I never stopped doing that, because I get a lot of joy out of it, and it helps me, and it helps re-energize me to go back to the fight, so the music, to answer your question, music can lift other people up, but it also lifts the people that are providing that music, and I get a lot out of that. That's probably the thing that I do to relax the most. I'm not like out on the golf course.
No,
I'm
not.
I'm not just hanging on the beach or whatever. Mm-hmm. That's the thing that really kind of replenishes the soul.
Yeah, you let the band shine, but your integral part is truly the message. It's the connection of your story and your truth with those who serve, and just it's so powerful to see how much just what you share, you can see it just impact them.
Every show that we've done, 600 something shows or whatever it is over the years, from the very beginning, there are these small moments during the show where I get to say what I think, and I get to deliver a message, and I get to talk to these crowds. That, to me, is, equally as important, to be able to deliver that message and to tell them how much I appreciate them, and to share some of what's going on with them, as, thumping the bass and entertaining. Mm-hmm. I get to put some meaning into the show beyond just, playing the music. I get to let them know why I've done this and why they're important, and that makes me feel good.
Yep. You are the representative of so many grateful Americans, and I know that it impacts them so deeply. I've had the great honor of seeing that for 11 years now, and it's just one of my great honors is to see that. Okay, so to shift gears, you also play a part in the National Memorial Day Parade. And so can you tell us a bit about your role and what does it mean to you to be there surrounded by the families of our fallen and veterans and so many patriotic, grateful Americans on Memorial Day?
Yeah, Memorial Day Parade is, it's very, very special. Mm-hmm. As I said, I did the first concert in 2005. Well, I think they started kicking the parade back into gear. They had done it for a while, then they stopped doing it. And I think it was 2006, it was either 2005 or 6 that they started doing the parade again. And so in 2006, when I was coming back to co-host, they reached out and asked me if I would, I co-host on Sunday night. They asked me if I would stay over on Monday and be the Grand Marshal of the parade. So I said, yeah, I didn't even know there was a parade. So
again,
another well-kept secret you've got, but they hadn't really been doing the parade for a while, so they picked it up again. You'll have to check that stat, but I think right around there they started doing it again. They asked me to be the Grand Marshal. I came. I was sitting in a car, waving to people as I drove along, and all that, and it said Grand Marshal on the side. I got to speak to the crowd. There's an area. The parade starts, and I can't remember the name of the street, but it comes around and it goes around the corner and it goes by I think might be the National Archives or something.
I believe. Mm-hmm.
And there's big steps. Everybody's sitting on the steps, so we kind of have a moment where we can talk to the crowd before the parade starts. And so I kind of deliver a message there. Joe and I are usually there together. And he wasn't there that year I did it first, but then he started coming, and so we kind of do that together. And then now the Gary Sinise Foundation, for the past several years now, we started having a float that we could bring some of the families of our fallen and celebrate them, honor them and I ride on the float with them, and we walk down, and the whole way we're going, everybody's cheering for the kids and cheering for those families. So that's very meaningful. This year, like the National Memorial Day concert, they did the Rise. The Rise is a part of the parade as well. So, they called and said, "Hey, we heard this piece of music. Can we use it?" And I didn't ask them about it. They called me up and said, "We heard this great piece of music that Mac wrote. Can we use it in the parade?" So there it is.
They were that just gobsmacked by just how incredible his music is.
Yeah.
I love that.
Pretty special. Yeah.
Okay, finally, Gary, in a moment as emotional and meaningful as this one and this week, what do you want the world to know about Mac, his music, and the mission that we continue in his honor?
Well, Mac was like, he had a journey in his 33 years. Mm-hmm. I'm writing about that now, actually, because I think what happened to Mac was, it's tragic in many ways. People that go through the loss of a loved one for cancer, and watching them fight it, and the challenges of not beating it, and the disabling factors that happen when you have certain types of cancer. They know what I'm talking about. But I saw him just rally, even as his body was breaking down.
Oh yeah.
And it broke down more and more and more and more as the years went on. And in some ways I could see it, I could see what's happening. Mm-hmm. He's blind in one eye now because there's a tumor back there. He can't move his arms, can't walk, all these different things. But at the same time that you see this crumbling happening in front of you, you still see the strong person that you're fighting for, you know. You're fighting to get that person back. You know, you're fighting against what you see is happening. It's hard to explain, but in some ways, while I could see it, I could see what's happening to Mac. It's right in front of my face. I know there's a lot of tumors. I know it's hurting him and all that. At the same time, I'm trying to pull the cancer out of him so that he can get back to being Mac. And you just don't let yourself stop. And it's him. He's the one that's the fuel to keep the fire burning because of the way he's dealing with it. You saw him, he was courageous. He's in a hospital bed. You know, he doesn't feel so good, but when he felt good, he was just Mac. He just happened to be in a hospital bed. And he kept creating, he kept inspiring, he kept motivating, he kept loving, he kept caring, he kept his sense of humor. And it was only the last couple of days before we lost him that I could see that he was done. You know, he couldn't fight it anymore. He wasn't gonna be able to overcome this. And even up to that point, I was like, we're gonna get through this moment in the hospital now, and then we're gonna go home like we have before. Because we'd done that so many times before, you know. Something's wrong, get him to the hospital, stabilize, figure it out, back home. And I was there all the way until that's where my head was, you know, all the way until it was clear that he was tired, you know, he was tired. But up until that point, Mac was smiling, he was talking. I remember he was having trouble with his lungs. That was the problem that got us into the hospital that last time. And he had to be on oxygen and all that, but then we got to this point where he had to have this BiPAP mask shooting air into his lungs because he wasn't able to get enough air. And his mom hadn't been able to come to the hospital yet, but she was going to come see him that day. And I said, Bud, I'm going to go down and get Mom. You think you could take the BiPAP off?
Oh.
When I bring her in, you know, have it off. And he shook his head. And so when I brought Moira in, he had taken the BiPAP mask off, and he had this smile on his face when he saw her. But I could tell he was only going to be able to keep that smile for just a short time before he had to put the mask back on. Because it was hard, but he wanted her to see him, you know, smiling. And that's, you know, so he was still trying all the way. All the way. Yeah.
That's Mac.
Inspiring guy.
Yeah.
You know, and he was happy at the end, Cristin. I've told this story, but he was showing people videos of his music, and they would go off and listen to Arctic Circles and go to the YouTube channel and watch it, and then come back and with tears in their eyes, and then he'd just kind of smile and feel proud of himself and everything. And so I knew he felt kind of content and at peace, at the end.
He had a moment where he could feel the praise on him, and the people react to his music. What do you think that he would say, knowing that his music is being performed for the nation in 2 broadcasts?
Never in a million years would he have ever thought that the National Symphony Orchestra
is playing Mac's music.
Never, and he would never have thought that.
The most humblest man,
he would never have thought that. He would never have thought that the album, when he wanted to make the vinyls for the Gary Sinise Foundation, he wanted to make 100 vinyls.
100 of them.
Remember?
I remember.
Yeah, he wasn't making them for any other reason other than just wanting to give something to a friend.
He wanted a connection.
He wanted to be able to hand something, not just say download it or whatever, but he wanted to hand a physical thing to somebody, a friend. I want to be able to give this to a friend. And he designed the album cover, he designed Resurrection and Revival, everything himself. He said, Dad, you think I should spend the money to make 100 albums?
100.
And I said, yes, you absolutely should. And he said, if we ever sell any, we'll give the proceeds to the foundation. And now those albums, between the 2 of them, and you never would have suspected that all that music that I found on his laptop would end up on another album.
Yeah.
But now there's 2 albums, and we've sold upwards of 7,000 copies, I think, between the 2 of them, of the vinyl. I think people are buying the vinyl even if they don't have a record player.
My parents did.
They don't have a record player?
No, they don't.
Oh, okay.
But they were so inspired, and they love it, and they listen to him streaming, but they just had to have that physical copy too, that connection to Mac.
Which is great, because he designed it. I mean, he put the picture of my grandfather on the front of the cover. He designed the back. I did some work on both records to, I wanted the first record, I wanted you to be able to open it up and look at it and, read some stuff, see some pictures. So Mac had just designed a single thing, and I added, let's put some pictures in. I wrote a little story, that kind of thing. Oliver wrote a little story in there. And then in part 2, there's all kinds of stuff. Some of the musician pals from USC who play on the record, they all wrote little things.
Their messages
about Mac, and all that content is in part 2. So he would have never, I don't think, ever imagined that he would end up both records on the top 10, most downloaded records in the country, or his music being played for the National Memorial Day concert and parade. No, he was a quiet sort of creative force who was just sort of very humble about it. And he kept writing all the way to the end. I mean, he was writing music in his hospital bed, in his last year. So it's a wonderful, it's a sad, wonderful story of somebody who was very giving in his heart and really left a beautiful bunch of gifts for all of us.
He lives on through his music. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast, on Mac's podcast, and sharing.
It is. And thank you for carrying on Mac's podcast.
It is a deep honor for me. I know I speak for the American public when I say that we hope that you continue to co-host the National Memorial Day concert for many, 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 many years to come. Thank you for sharing the true and powerful stories of the men and women who gave their everything for our nation and for our freedom. And as we do with every podcast episode, Mac will close out the show.
You've been listening to GSF Podcast, the official podcast of the Gary Sinise Foundation. If you'd like to find out more about what the foundation is up to, or if you'd like to make a donation, please visit GarySiniseFoundation.org. Make sure to tune in next time for more interviews, and thanks for joining us.